There were 1,448 games for the Super Famicom released in Japan. Much less than half was ever released in the West, leaving roughly 1,000 16-bit Nintendo games left in Japan. What if I told you there was a Mario game that you probably never played and it's good? I'm going to go over 9 games for the Super Famicom that were not released on the Super Nintendo in North America that you need to check out. Mario and Wario by Nintendo. Price, 560 yen, or $4. In 1993, Nintendo developed and published Mario and Wario for the Super Famicom, but only in Japan. It requires the mouse controller and makes good use of it. Mario and Wario was a real-time puzzle game made by Game Freak and even had Satoshi Tajiri as designer and director. You play as a fairy named Wanda, who the player flies around the screen using the mouse. Your job is to help Mario make it to the end of the level, since Wario has dumped a giant bucket onto his head. Mario, or Peach or Yoshi in different difficulty levels, is wandering around and is in immediate danger of falling into various traps and dangers. Your job as a mouse-controlled guardian fairy is to solve puzzles by clicking on panels to make blocks appear and disappear, swat bad guys, turn Mario around, as well as interacting with the level layout to save Mario and pals from certain bucket blindness-induced doom. It definitely takes inspiration from Lemmings, but has a ton of Nintendo charm. I just want to point out that it is a fun, creative Mario game made by the developers of Pokemon, yet it is mostly obscure outside of Japan. A Western release was planned at one point, and in Japan it was bundled both with the mouse controller and on its own. I've been enjoying it with the Hyperkin Super Nintendo mouse that has a longer cord than Nintendo's mouse, and it's also larger and a bit more comfortable, and it has a laser instead of a trackball. It is a great companion to this game. Mario and Wario is quite fun, made by the creators of Pokemon, and is in full English and is quite easy to pick up and play. Absolutely check it out. Rockman and Forte, also known as Megaman and Bass by Capcom. Price, 3,280 yen, or $23. Technically, it's a sequel to Rockman Megaman 8 on PlayStation 1 and Saturn, despite it being made for the 16-bit Super Famicom. It was released in the late year of 1998, and is one of the last Super Famicom games made. It was never released in the US on the Super Nintendo, but it did come out and it was ported to the Game Boy Advance, but it's meant to be played on the big screen. At the start of the game, you can choose to play as either as Rockman or Forte, who is eventually called Bass, but you can't switch between the two, so you might want to play through the game twice to make sure that you get the full effect. Rockman Megaman can charge his shots to make them stronger and can slide around on the ground. Forte/Bass can shoot rapid fire in 8 directions, but can't fire while moving or charge his shots. But he can do a double jump. There were 2 robot master bosses that were also in Rockman Megaman 8, but there are 6 that are original, made just for this game. Despite being one of the last Super Famicom games made, it is still pretty affordable to find a copy, and it's highly recommended to play on the Super Famicom. Mega Man just feels so good on 8-bit and 16-bit hardware, and this is the last one made. Truly an end of an era. Ganbare, Daiku no Gensan. Good luck, Carpenter Gen, by IREM. Price, 1,200 yen, or $9. Carpenter Gen-san made his debut on the Super Famicom in Ganbare Daiku no Gensan, and the gameplay remains mostly the same as the Famicom games. There seems to be a lot more vertical movement, as the Super Famicom gave IREM a lot more graphical power to create Gen-san's wacky world. It is a fun look at late 1980s Japan, and in true video game style of the era, all of the enemies are out to get you. If it's on the screen and it moves, it probably wants to attack our hero. This includes all of the animals and the old ladies with the shopping bags. Apparently, they're all on the bad guy's payroll. Luckily, this game seems to be a lot easier than the first two games in the series on the Famicom, and our hero has a life meter and can take multiple hits. Gen now has a screen-clearing attack by throwing his hammer in the air and having it shoot out magical bolts. There are some newer power-ups, like different outfit vests and pants to make you stronger and jump higher. There are also an icon that lets Gen shoot sparks out of his hammer, but they took out the ability to block enemies while ducking. Our hero seems to move faster in this game, and it seems graphically closer to the original 16-bit arcade game. This was the last Carpenter Gen game on a TV system before the game series moved to the Game Boy. I pre-ordered the retro-bit release of Hammer and Harry 1 and 2 as soon as I could, and I hope that retro-bit considers releasing Ganbare Daiku no Gensan in the US. It could totally translate this title as "Hang in there, Hammer and Harry." Luckily, the Super Famicom release is pretty easy to find and is a reasonable price these days. By the way, after this video, you should go watch my review of Hammer and Harry 1 and 2. A link will be at the end of the video. I would be shocked if Retrobit passes on this game, but you should not pass it up. Super Genjin 2, also known as Super Bonk 2 by Hudson. Price, 600 yen, or $4.25. Hudson released the original 3 PC Engine games on the PC Engine, and a remake for the Famicom, and a sequel for the Super Famicom. All of those games would eventually come to the West as the Bonk's Adventure game series. However, the second Super Famicom game stayed in Japan, and it's too bad because it features our caveman hero taking advantage of a number of power-ups that give him additional powers with enhanced gameplay options. The longer that the series ran, the more wacky it got, and it really is some of the best 16-bit platform actions out there involving cartoon dinosaurs and cavemen. Sadly, this is the last of the original Bonk games before they went on a 3D Engine remake for the PlayStation 2 and GameCube in Japan. So it really is the last Bonk game made on a 2D console, and it's surprisingly easy to get a copy of. Next time that you're buying some import Super Famicom games, make sure you get a copy of Super Genjin 2. Super Puyo Puyo 2 Remix by Compile. Price, 560 yen, or $4. Compile updated their most excellent competitive puzzle game about dropping blobs of various color and building up attacks to take out your opponent for Super Famicom. It is bright, colorful, and fun, and it's actually one of the best competitive 2D puzzle games out there. And one of the series was turned into Kirby's Avalanche, and another game in the series was turned into Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. However, Puyo Puyo shines the brightest when Puyo Puyo lets its freak flag fly with all of the weirdness. Apparently, the kanji that they used for 2 can also be read as expert, so the sequel contains some advanced difficulty options for the most experienced Puyo Puyo players. Whether you're playing against a human or the computer opponent, Puyo Puyo 2 Remix for Super Famicom is just the amount of competitive puzzle weirdness that you need. Cats Run Zen-Nippon K Car Senshuken, or Cats Run All Japan K Car Championship by Atlus. Price, 1900 yen, or $14. You might think of Atlus as a game studio that made the Persona game series and Shin Megami Tensei series, and they are, but they also made a hella cute Mode 7 racing game that you didn't get to play because it stayed in Japan. A K-car is a cute, fun Japanese cars that are affordable and fuel efficient, and Atlus put together a racing game featuring cute anime girls driving K-cars in a rally race across several courses. It features F-Zero style Mode 7 graphics, Mario Kart power-ups, and long multi-stage outrun-inspired races. It is so freaking cute to see your anime girl react to driving around, and the game also features some pretty decent digitized speech. Sadly, Atlus did not have a US branch at the time, and it was released at a time when US game publishers were hesitant to release anime-like games in the early 90s. It's hard to believe that there actually was a time when there was almost nothing anime-like in the West, and it was considered too weird for American tastes. Cap's run All Japan K Car Championship by Atlus is nothing but cute Mode 7 racing action, and it really goes down smooth with a crisp anime aftertaste. UFO Kamen Yakisoban, Kettler no Kuroi Inbō. UFO Mask Yakisoban, Kettler's Dark Conspiracy by Nissin Food Products. Price? 1,200 yen, or $9. UFO Yakisoba is a popular brand of fried noodle-flavored instant noodles, and in the 1990s they had a commercial series called UFO Kamen Yakisoban, where a Super Sentai-inspired superhero would show up with a giant bowl of yakisoba on his head, and he would defeat various noodle-themed bad guys using sauce attack and trapping them with projectile noodles. It got so popular to the point that they decided to make a video game based on the commercial series. So, this is a side-scrolling beat-em-up starring a campy, wacky superhero advertising mascot fighting the legions of bad guys that work for a supervillain who has a kettle for a head. It's a surprisingly fun game that doesn't take itself too seriously. Considering the 7-Up Cool Spot and Chester Cheetah of Cheetos fame got their own video game, it really is no surprise that UFO Kamen Yakisoban would eventually get their own game on the Super Famicom. It's wacky, it's colorful, it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot deeper, danker cut than Pepsi Man. If I convince just one person about the awesomeness that is the yakisoba sauce beam attack, then I will consider this a successful YouTube video. There are a lot of awesome weird Japanese games out there for the 16-bit systems, just like UFO Kamen Yakisoban. So go enjoy some tasty instant noodles and check it out. Poppin' Twinbee by Konami. Price? 750 yen, or $5.25. The series Twinbee was some of the original Q-em-up shooters, and the series has moved to the Super Famicom with this release. They really did an amazing job taking advantage of the 16-bit hardware, and the game has a 2-player simultaneous co-op mode, which is a lot of fun. This game really takes advantage of the game mechanic of having enemies on the ground that you have to manually throw bombs at in order to defeat. This game was one of the first games that I ever played on an emulator in the late 90s before SNES 9X could properly render Super Famicom transparencies. The detailed cartoon Konami graphics are glorious. Even if you don't have a lot of experience playing shooters, this game is a great game worth looking into. Poppin' Twinbee is a surprisingly robust addition to a classic game series, and it's a crying shame that it was never released in the US, but it did come out in Europe. Twinbee Rainbow Bell Adventure by Konami. Price? 1,200 yen, or $8.50. Konami made a Twinbee platform jumping action game starring the characters Twinbee, Winbee, and Gwinbee from the Twinbee games, but instead of flying around, they are running around curved levels like a Sonic game. Twinbee Rainbow Bell Adventure features fast running, cute detailed graphics, jumping and punching of cartoon bad guys. Your attacks can be charged for greater range and more power. The Japanese version had the levels arranged like an overworld layout like Super Mario Bros., while the European version had all the levels one after another like Sonic. It is pretty, cute, and well done like many 16-bit Konami games of the era. Just like Pop and Twinbee, it came out in Europe and Japan, but not in the US. Boo! We were only the largest market for the Super Nintendo in the entire world. It is fast, fun, and a heck of a lot better than some of the games that we did end up getting on the Super Nintendo.
だから問題はね、ソースと麺なんですよ。
いや、そんなことは分かってますよ。ですからもう少し詳しく話をしましょう。
アメリカでもね、UFO って言えばね。
お飲み物は？
僕、その役大変だ。あの男は焼きそばんだ。おっと、焼きそば。焼きそばがケトラ。特製ソースピー。麺アタック。入った。
ありがとうございます。
どういたしまして。
ソースが決め手だ。
焼きそば。
UFO。
マリオがワリオに目隠しされた。負けるな頑張れば僕らがマウスで連れて行こう。
マリオ危うし、マウスで妖精を操ってマリオをゴールへ導け。楽しさなんとオール100面。スーパーファミコンで新登場。
マリオとワリオだよ。
マウスで楽しいマリオペイントもよろしく。
There are a ridiculous amount of 16-bit Super Nintendo games that stayed in Japan, and it's great because they are now easier for us to play them in the West than ever. I plan on making a lot more videos like this, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and encourage your friends who are into retro video games to check out these videos. This is 8-Bit Joystick. Stay awesome. Play retro.